Welcome to The Explainer. Look, if you've spent any time at all around accounting, you already know IFRS 15, and you probably learned it the exact same way everyone else does, as this rigid 5-step model that you just have to memorize. But what if I told you that by simply memorizing those 5 steps in numerical order, you're actually missing the true architectural blueprint of the standard? Today, we're moving way beyond rote memorization. We're taking a journey to unveil the hidden structure of IFRS 15, stripping away all the noise so we can see the elegant underlying logic of how revenue truly works. Here is the roadmap for our explainer today. We'll start with the standard's hidden architecture, then walk through identifying the contract, unbundling performance obligations, measurement, recognizing revenue, and finally, closing the accounting loop. Section 1. The standard's hidden architecture. Unveiling the blueprint. Okay, so we are all taught the familiar 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sequence, but if you look at the literal paragraph breakdown of the standard itself, that sequence doesn't actually exist in that order. Seriously, the standard groups steps 1, 2, and 5 together in a single chapter called Recognition, covering paragraphs 9 through 45. It addresses them one right after the other, without pausing to price a single thing. It's only after all of that is totally settled that it moves to measurement in paragraphs 46 through 90, where steps 3 and 4 are grouped together. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why the standard is built this way. IFRS 15 is really just answering two completely separate questions in two separate places. The recognition chapter is entirely focused on the what and when. What is in the contract, what exactly are the promises, and when is each one satisfied? Once you have the obligations and the timing nailed down, then you move to the measurement chapter, which simply asks how much. Identifying an obligation is a genuinely different exercise from pricing it. So while we interleave them as steps 1 through 5 for teaching convenience, keeping this two-question architecture in your head makes the whole thing so much easier to follow. Section 2. Step 1. Identify the contract, setting the foundation. To kick things off, a contract needs commercial substance, identifiable rights, and probable collection. But once signed, contracts rarely stay static, do they? Customers add scope, they renegotiate. When this happens, we have to figure out if it's a brand new contract or just an adjustment. The standard gives us 3 branching paths based on 2 tests. Is the new stuff distinct, and is it at a standalone selling price? If it's a yes to both, boom, it's a separate contract. Your original revenue is totally untouched. If it's distinct but not at a standalone price, it's a prospective adjustment. You basically terminate the old contract and build a new one for the remaining goods moving forward. But if the new stuff is not distinct, meaning you are still satisfying that original obligation, it's a cumulative catch-up. You recalculate your progress and take a one-off adjustment in the current period. It's the exact same commercial event. The customer wants more, landing in 3 entirely different accounting realities. Section 3. Step 2. Performance obligations. Unbundling the promises. Right, so a contract is really just a bundle of promises. And before you do anything else, you have to unbundle it into distinct goods or services. The very moment you sign a contract, you owe the customer something. Earning revenue is just the accounting proof that you paid off that debt. To put it in a way we can all relate to, think about that unredeemed gift card sitting in your wallet right now. It is a perfect illustration of how performance and payments split apart. That little piece of plastic is actually a liability living on the issuer's balance sheet as a contract liability. They have the cash, sure, but they haven't performed yet. Only when you finally go buy something does that obligation die and their revenue is born. But identifying those obligations gets really tricky when a third party is involved. Are you the principal or are you the agent? This all comes down to one fundamental concept: control. Do you literally control the good or service before it transfers to the customer? If yes, you're the principal, and you recognize the gross amount. If no, you're an agent, and you only recognize your commission. And listen, this is not just some cosmetic reporting difference. $100,000 in customer payments could mean $100,000 in top-line revenue for a principal, but only $15,000 for an agent earning a 15% commission. That is a massive, 7-fold difference based entirely on one single judgment about control. Section 4, Steps 3 and 4. Measurement. Pricing the obligations. We are now leaving the what and when chapter of recognition and crossing over into the how much chapter. Let's pick up the pace a bit and talk about the numbers. To ground us, here is the official definition of the transaction price. It is the amount of consideration an entity expects to be entitled to in exchange for transferring those promised goods or services. It sounds super simple, but turning the word expects into a hard number on a balance sheet requires some heavy lifting, especially when things get variable. Now, what's really interesting is how we turn variables, like rebates, refunds, or bonuses, into actual math. The standard gives you two tools. You either use a probability-weighted expected value if there's a wide range of outcomes, or you use the most likely amount if the contract really just has two binary outcomes. You can't just guess. You have to pick whichever method better predicts the actual results. But here is where you have to stop and pay attention. Your estimate is not automatically your transaction price. The standard applies a very strict constraint. You can only include that variable consideration if it is highly probable that a significant reversal won't occur later on. Even if you think you have a 40% chance at a bonus, if that number could significantly reverse, it stays out. The rule here is absolutely definitive. Revenue must not run ahead of certainty. So once we have that total transaction price figured out, step 4 tells us how to allocate it. And the standard is entirely unforgiving of shortcuts here. You have to split the total price across the performance obligations based on their relative standalone selling prices. If you don't have an observable price, you have to estimate it using market assessments or expected costs. There is a residual approach, basically backing into a price by subtracting everything else, but it is highly, highly restricted. You absolutely cannot just use it to dodge a difficult estimate. Section 5. Step 5. Recognizing revenue. Fulfilling the promise. This brings our architectural journey full circle. We've defined the contract, split up the promises, and priced them out. Now we finally recognize the revenue, the exact moment control of the good or service transfers to the customer. Under the standard, this satisfaction takes one of exactly two shapes. It either happens over time, where the customer receives the benefit as you perform, like a cleaning service or a custom construction project, and you constantly measure your progress to recognize revenue. Or it happens at a point in time. That's the instant control passes, like physically handing over the keys or delivering the product. Section 6, closing the accounting loop, bringing the blueprint together. Let's zoom out and look at the completed structure we built. When you look past all the dense regulatory language, IFRS 15 is actually incredibly elegant. It is simply the ordinary logic of assets and liabilities applied directly to how you interact with your customers. If we distill this entire complex 5-step model down to its absolute essence, it's really just this elegant 3-move sequence. Move 1, identify what is promised. Move 2, determine the consideration for each of those promises. And move 3, recognize the revenue as those promises are actually fulfilled. It really is that straightforward. So I leave you with this question to ask yourself the next time you look at your own books. Is your revenue reflecting the true commercial reality of your extinguished obligations, or are you just accounting for a signed piece of paper? The answer dictates the integrity of your entire balance sheet. Keep that structure in mind, and we'll see you in our next explainer as we explore how these rules bend under pressure across different industries. Thanks for joining me on The Explainer.